Exactly. You see, that's why. I mean, I've got another joke coming about that later. But yeah, so this was the things when I was very much younger. I mean, when you were young, you don't really realize so much about the drinking part. You know, the stereotype in your mind is always about this poor guy, this poor Indian laborer, this poor Tamil laborer, perhaps, who has just gone through a long day and who is just taking a sip at the side of the road to you know,
Yeah.
to get through the entire day, and then he's now being stereotyped that all Indians are like that. So yeah, so that's number two. Number three, Chinese, of course. I mean, again, I know we are talking here and we are very open and all that, but I still feel very bad saying this. But these were things that are still in other people's minds, lah. They used to say that, you know, the only thing straight about Chinese is the hair.
Yes.
You see,
Yeah.
as
I've
Eddie
heard
is,
it. I've
as
heard
Eddie
it.
is, which I found. I mean, I find it very difficult, lah. You know, to take it seriously, lah. You know, and then for Malays, of course, the usual, lah. You know, Malays are. You know, super lazy, and you know they take forever to get something done. You want to know the height of inefficiency, go to a government department. You know, the bureaucracy will kill you and all that kind of. So these are just four examples of codes that I grew up with, lah. You see, and then this was within Malaysia, and then when I was in my late teens, I remember, because I've got family in Singapore, and we were over in Singapore for something, and I heard somehow that. I mean, I think we all know that some Singaporeans, for that matter, kind of look down on Malaysians. And I was very surprised to note, and this was in 2002 or 2000 and no, yeah, it was in 2002, 2003. I was so surprised to know that apparently some people in Singapore still think of us Malaysians as living in trees, on trees, for that matter.
Yeah.
You see, I was like, okay, you know, I was very taken aback. But then after many years, I kind of realized that some Semenanjung people also think of those in Sabah and Sarawak as living on trees. So we are no better, quite honestly. You know, yeah. So these are just some examples of that I've gone through, and it has not been the easiest growing up in a biracial family. Because there is always both sides to kind of satisfy. You have the religion, you have the two different religions, two different cultures, two different languages, and all that. I think I'm pretty okay with the language part because I don't speak a word of Punjabi, much to my dad's chagrin, and I can understand more Tamil because in uni you kind of like you kind of gravitate to, you know, your own. I started off uni like that because no one else wanted to be in a group with you, so you kind of gravitate towards the Indians, and they make sure they don't speak any other language. So I was forced to learn Tamil somehow or other, and yeah, so my main language has always been English. That's the main language that we speak at home, and I've got no problem with it whatsoever. Yeah, so that's from me.
Okay, that's quite a long list. Now you have to go through. I just forgot that I didn't share where I'm coming from. You know. Actually, I'm coming from the Bengali town, somewhere in Teluk Intan. Teluk Intan.
Oh, so I see.
Yeah, I think until I'm 20 over when I'm in KL. When I stay in KL, only then I know there is a Sikh. You're called Sikh, not Bengali. I always makan roti Bengali. You know, the crust one, like they said, like the. I don't know. Yes. We call it roti Bengali.
We still call it roti Bengali. I mean,
it was because it's made by Bengali and sold by the Bengali.
Yeah, right. but it's very nice. Yes, I like to dip into some Milo or whatever.
Yeah.
So I came from Teluk Intan. I'm married now. 6 children. Now I'm living in UK Perdana. What do? I basically helping friends selling T-shirts. It's a printing T-shirt business, and yeah, I also do insurance, general insurance. Okay, thank you. Probably after this we can go your I think 4 or 5 points on that thing. Yeah, I mean those are the stereotypes that we use quite common on that thing. I think okay, probably Eddie, you have anything to share about your own experience?
Okay, just to respond to Joel, I don't think Joel realized, probably you realized that also, as like Cheryl, I'll say that usually I will bring out subjects like this in the classroom. And to my surprise, my Indian students couldn't tell the difference between Sikh and Punjabi. I mean, I have Chinese students and Malay students, they cannot tell it's excusable. I have Indian students, and I think majority of them cannot tell the difference between Punjabi and Sikh. And I have to tell them, Punjabi is the race, Sikh is the religion. Not all Sikhs are Punjabi, not all Sikhs are Punjabi, not all Punjabi are Sikhs. Because if you go online, you will see some white Sikhs. A lot of Europeans convert to Sikhism and become white. They wear a turban, they become a Sikh. So there is one interesting thing that I think we need to start.
No, Eddie, you are generalizing because I also don't know that, man.
Your Malay is okay. It's for the Indian student, don't know, there is a little bit like, okay, it's like Chinese couldn't tell the difference between Japanese and Korean or something like that. Anyway, I grew up in a during my time, because I'm quite old. So during my time, KL was a very, very Chinese town. And in my neighborhood, I have hardly seen any other races growing up, except when I was from standard 4, I was in a government quarter because my father was a government servant at the time. When he retired, we moved out and we moved to Cheras. It's a very, very Chinese town. And then on top of that, I went to a Chinese school. My parents sent me to a Chinese school. So the only other race that I interacted when I was growing up is in church were the Indians. I have never encountered or actually interacted with Malays before. So when I finished my Form 5, we were going away I was planning to go overseas. At the time, the American program just started in Malaysia. It was so that you can see how old I am. And the government actually brought in overseas university program in Malaysia through MARA. And then they open up for non-Malay students to go in. Of course, we need to pay, but the MARA students don't need to pay. I went in there. That was the first time that it was really like from a classroom of 100% Chinese, it dropped me into a classroom where I become the minority. Like there's only 4 or 5 of us. And it happened to be 4 or 5 of us, all of us are from Chinese school. And the only person who is quite efficient in English is myself, because I came from an English-speaking family and I go to church. But it's still, at the time, I have not used it. I didn't use English as much as today. So my English was not that efficient, even though no problem understanding. But the Malay students in the class, they have no problem. They were basically the cream of the crops. Okay. We get along. There's no problem. I get along very well. And at the time, it was in early 80s. The Malay ladies, many of them don't wear tudung, but I always remember this one. She is the only girl in the classroom that wear a tudung, and she was the smartest girl. She was so good in everything. But what actually happened was this. Like Joe has talked about, Malays are kind of stupid and lazy and stuff like this. So growing up in the majority Chinese town community, that is a very strong stereotype is in me. But I didn't really have that much of belief of that. So, but anyway, being among Malaysia was the first time. So what actually happened was, what struck me, never crossed my mind, but it struck me very, very strongly, was one time, I even forgotten what paper was that. All the Chinese score quite badly in that paper. Quite a number of Malays scored very high, got A's, like 90 over marks. So when we got our paper back, I just overheard, I don't think he knew I heard it. He just sat down and he said, but actually he said in Malay, he said, anyone dare to say Malay is stupid now? He said it to another friend. And I overheard it, I just kept quiet. But that struck me, you know. It was like that this incident helped me to realize that a lot of stereotypes that we have, especially among the Chinese community, it's not right. Anyway, so since then, of course, I grew up. I interact with a lot of Malays. I have Malay friends like Cheryl. But before that, in college, and another one thing is that my first colleague who sat next to me when I started INTI was a Malay lady. Also wear tudung, very strong past supporter. She and husband lecture mathematics. She got a master in mathematics. So, and I, as a Chinese, I can do math, but I'm very, very lazy. And whatever math I have, I already given back to my teachers in school, and I'm quite bad, whatever. So that is it. There is my experience of working out my own stereotypes about other people.
All right. Thanks, EDDY. Of course, there is one stereotyping that all Chinese supposed to be very good at maths. Probably. Well,
and I can tell you that even perpetuated in the US, when I was studying in the US, the American Chinese complained. One of my friends, one day in high school, she said in high school, she got a C in her math. Her white friend turned to her and said, "How come you got a C in your math? You're Chinese."
Yeah. But one thing, okay, where I'm coming from, Alexa, I'm from Teluk Intan. Actually, I'm more to the Hutam Lintang side now. Hutam Lintang is the intersection between, Bagan Datuk. I think Hutam Lintang goes straight. That's from Sabak Bernam. It's bordering between Selangor and Perak, Sida Selatan, then Teluk Intan. So in Hutam Lintang, where I reside, is more Indian. But in the before that, I live in the quarters, in the government quarters, somewhere in Sungai Semul. It's more towards Bagan Datuk one. That one is more like Melayu one. There are some Indians working in the estate. So during my primary school, I didn't see much of Chinese. I've not really, except for my dad's, bawa pergi kedai, I like it. And basically, there is, I think, 10 rows of kedai shops. I think all 10 of them basically owned by Chinese. And there is one barber shop, is basically Indian. Yeah, I think there's Indian kedai runcit. I think Melayu one, I'm not too sure. Probably none. I mean, in this small town where I live, I mean, there is none. So I just enjoy going to the shop and buy stuff. I don't think about race and stuff like that. I just like to play. Not much. I just had a little bit of fight over with Indian, so the bigger one in the bus. Nothing. It's just that when I grew, I don't. Is it generalization, stereotyping? Is it the same, Pat?
No, the difference is actually very key. When you stereotype, you put everybody in one group. You know, so like saying all Chinese are good at maths is a stereotype. So you don't account for differences within the group. But when you generalize, what you're saying is maybe the equivalent would be most Chinese are good at maths. Most. So what happens then is when we say most, in our mind, we still are open to being proven wrong. But when I stereotype, I say all Chinese are good at maths. I've made a definitive statement. So likely is very hard to prove me wrong. Even you show me evidence also, I might not agree to it. That's what we mean when we say it's a stereotype, Like for instance, in Nandini's thing, the people who say, "Oh, if I rent to Indians, they will dirty my house," So they have actually put the whole group of Indians into that one category with no possibility of there being any difference within that group.
Yeah, but I think living in the Malaysian context, we are multiracial. We tend to bump into each other, especially in Kuala Lumpur. We don't really have that extreme stereotyping. I believe so. Probably we have some form of generalization. I think it's pretty much.
But very close, if you put on a continuum. Usually. when people make that kind of statement, they kind of see the majority of people in that box.
Yeah.
So it is perhaps if you want to look at degrees of pain or degrees of perspective, the stereotype is the is 100% debatable. The generalization is maybe 70% lah.
Okay.
In that sense lah. If you go on a scale, but you can still be if you generalize, you probably are still open to a discussion. If you stereotype, possibly
I
the
think
discussion is difficult.
I mean, I've checked mine. I'm not too bad in certain sense. I think I'm more to generalization kind of stuff lah. It is from my observation.
Yes.
From where I live in Teluk Intan, I want to go to the nearest shop to where I live is basically all Chinese. When I go to the bigger town like Teluk Intan, they're all basically Chinese lah. It's the Melayu one is only the kedai makan, so that's why we find Melayu shop. So, and we, of course, as a Malay, we tend to generalize that the Chinese are richer because they're doing business, man.
Because they are doing business.
That's why
because that is how we see it as people, as children. We see the world that way. But actually, as children, nobody can tell us that people need to work, and whether you work in your own business or you work for government, is still work. It's up to the individual what choice of work they choose, isn't it?
No, as a child, I want to be rich. I just want to be like the Chinese. I have to do. I have to do business.
Because you like the things in the shop, so you want to be able to have those things.
That's why when I study in uni, I just told this is for my parents. I don't want a degree. I just want a scroll for my parents because they expect me to have a scroll. But even during my first year, I already have a shop. In my uni, I have a shop in Bangsa. I open Western food. I do all sort of stuff until I almost get kicked out from my uni. So that is always me, Yeah. Sorry, Joel. Over to you.
Oh no, Boon, you were talking about Chinese are the usual businessmen and all that. I think that is historic from an historical point of view. That is a legacy of the British. And that is where it all started. The Chinese are in the towns doing the businesses. The Indians are in the estates tapping rubber. The Malaysia in their kampong. The Malays are in their kampongs, or fishermen for that matter. And also just to add on to the various the various labels that were spoken about. I remember in one of the companies that I was with before coming to KL. I'm actually from Penang, coming from a very not really small. I think quite slightly bigger than Teluk Intan. Teluk Intan is charmingly small. One of the most beautiful towns I've actually been to. My town is Bukit Mertajam, which is home to the famed St. Anne's Church. And it is predominantly Chinese. It's always been predominantly Chinese. And I remember when I was still working in Penang, we came out. I had colleagues who were Chinese and Indians and all that. And as a joke, we used to come up with a generalization or a general thing. People will always say, that Chinese. There's the modern Chinese and the slightly old-fashioned one. We call them Cina Bukit. And these were the Chinese themselves who actually came up with the term. We'll be somewhere and they look at this group and like to Cina Bukit lah. They himself will come up with the term by themselves. And among Indians, for that matter, Tamils especially, the word estate has always been a connotation that these people are from a very backward background. So if you see a group of Indians and then they see another Indian guy or a group of Indians behaving a little differently, they're like, these are all estates, blah 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 blah. So we came up with this generalization. You have Cina Bukits, India estates, and Malay kampongs for that matter. So these are actually legacy from the British and we are still the way we look at it, unfortunately, it's still via the same lens as much as possible. Until today also, to be frank, in a very positive way when I go when I visit an Indian restaurant or a business, and I see the service is really bad. In my heart, I'll be thinking, you're nothing like the Chinese. The Chinese actually know what they're doing when it comes to business. I actually compare it that way, but in a very positive way, lah. You see. Yeah. Sorry, Boon. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
Okay.
I don't do business. I'm really, you give me a business to use. I cannot even handle my own money. I don't even know how much money I have in the bank. Things like that. My own personal experience. I did not really know about how other people stereotyping Chinese because because if you grow up in the majority Chinese community and then my family is Chinese, you only stereotype others. You don't think about other people also think the same thing about you, Until when I finished my Form 5, I one particular period waiting for my result and go to college. I went and joined sales team. It was for some reason I went and joined. And then we are selling languages. The lingua phone you heard of, and then packages.
Yeah.
So you will go to house to house to house and demo and say, okay, you listen to this, and you listen to this, and you know how to speak Chinese, you know how to speak Japanese, or you know how to speak English and things like that. And then we are divided into team, and the team will go to different states.
Areas. Yeah.
In the area states. So one time I joined that particular group for maybe about a month. I just cannot, but it was a good experience from hindsight. But when I was in the group with them, I was not very. I didn't really enjoy it because it's like. But I got to go to Terengganu for the first time ever in my entire life, and with this group of guy. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us in the car. So the supervisor was the one who's driving. There's only 2 Chinese guy in there, myself and the another Chinese guy. The rest it was 2 Indians. The supervisor is Indian, and then 2 Indians, and the third one was a Siamese Malay mixed guy. Okay, so what actually happened is that it didn't occur to me. One time he was driving because he will go and neighborhood to neighborhood to sell. Okay, you knock at the door and sell. So whenever he drove by, my supervisor was an Indian, drove by in Chinese neighborhood, he will say, Chinese, money, money. He will say that. Then after a while, it occurred to me because it never really came across my mind. It occurred to me: is this how other people, other races stereotype Chinese? That we are actually rich people. Okay, so that was the first time ever it occurred to me that other people also stereotype us Chinese. Because prior to that, I was just like, oh, the world is around in the center of Chinese. It comes from the country called the Middle Kingdom, originated from that. So, yeah.
But I like your point.
Yeah.
I like your point, Eddie, that you only become conscious of your stereotype when you are meeting someone from outside your community. Because if you stay in the same community, everybody,
Yes.
you're in your comfort zone. Everybody, everybody just gets on. You don't label each other as much. But Joel's point of this Cina Bukit, I think it has to do also with the dialect group, because this is actually from my reading of the Chinese history, and some of it I think is from James Michener's Hawaii, that when the Chinese migrated, the people from Canton were the more urban type, and then you had the Hakka people who came from the hills, and they all migrated. But I think when they settled in wherever they went, there was still that division of urban and rural, and you
We
had
should call
that
them
kind.
Samba.
Sorry?
Because it's Samba. We call it Samba.
Yeah.
San means mountain, mountain, very wild mountain area.
And so they would keep separate what? I think in the old days, you would stay within your dialect group, right or not? Yeah.
But now no more. Now it's all mixed already. Just
Now it's all
the younger generation has no idea what they are.
because
They have
some of them
no
don't speak their dialect anymore. So how to stay in their dialect group?
I so used. I don't know where that Cina Bukit coming from. I so used to hear that when I was small. And any Cina Bukit, when they are good, you know.
But for us here in Klang Valley, we don't call it Cina Bukit. We call it Cina Peng.
Okay, that is in Kampung. I'm coming from Kampung side. We normally.
I think maybe the northern side of the country, the Bukit is a bit more. You know, you are.
Okay, guys. I got a comment from Andel Krishnan. What we need is basically positive experience with other races, and the stereotyping is shattered. Basically, I mean, the moment that you bump into a nice guy, you know, from other races, you know that not all Chinese are good at maths. Huh? You got the outcast here in EDDY. Oh, probably it's not rich and not good at maths. So you have to go at maths, and then you can be rich. You know, you're taking the wrong path. Okay. I mean, yeah, of course.